All right, let's talk about a media company that basically throws the rule book out the window. This is a wild story about a hacker, a fight for justice, and a pretty unique media empire that's built on something incredibly raw and personal: trauma.
And it all kicks off with this mystery. You've got a podcast, the Cybermidnight Club, that drops a new episode almost every single day. But if you look at the ratings, they're just terrible. So what in the world is going on here?
Okay, just look at these numbers. They make no sense, right? Almost 700 episodes. That's a massive amount of work. But then you see a 1.8-star rating on Apple and 43 followers on Podbean. By any normal standard, you'd call this a total failure. But it's not. This is where things get really interesting, because it's not a failure. It's a completely different kind of game.
To figure this out, we have to completely change how we think about what a podcast is even for. This is the absolute key to unlocking the whole strategy. So, here's the first big clue. That polished episode you might download for your morning commute? For Cybermidnight Club? Yeah, that's not the point. It's not the main event at all.
What it is, really, is a library, a permanent searchable record of conversations that are happening somewhere else entirely. Think of it like a receipt for the real product. So the question is, where's the real show happening?
And that takes us right into the engine room. This is the system that lets them create so much raw, immediate content day in and day out.
They're using what's called a live-first content model. And what that means is the real value, the magic, it's not in some perfectly edited audio file. Nope, the value is in the live, messy, totally unscripted conversation. The podcast you find later, that's just the echo. It's the artifact left behind. And here's how they pull it off. It's actually a pretty slick pipeline. It all starts with a live talk on X Spaces. That raw audio gets recorded. Then, they use AI to whip up a summary and all the metadata. And bam, it's pushed out as a podcast episode. It's a machine that lets them publish daily, something that would be literally impossible for a traditional show.
And this right here, this quote changes everything. It's a total mindset shift. The content isn't something produced for the audience. The chaotic, real-time conversation with the audience, that's the product.
Okay, so we've got the how. But that brings up an even bigger question. Why? Why go to all this trouble to build this relentless, non-stop content machine? What's the real motivation driving all of this? And to answer that, you have to understand the man behind it all, Alberto Daniel Hill. Because his personal story, well, it's not just some backstory, it's the actual fuel for this entire operation.
So check this out. In 2017, Hill was a cybersecurity expert who was wrongfully arrested and became Uruguay's first so-called computer criminal. Things got worse. While he was in custody, he ended up in a medically induced coma. But after he got out, he took that horrific experience and turned it into a global mission.
And this is the absolute core of the whole thing. This personal tragedy, the conviction, the coma, even losing a ton of his crypto, it wasn't the end of his story. It became his strategic advantage. It all came together to forge this incredibly authentic mission, a crusade for justice in the digital world.
This experience gave him a brand new identity, the digital dissident. I mean, think about it. In a field full of experts who just talk about hacks, Hill is a survivor. He is a direct victim of the systems he critiques. That gives him a kind of street cred, a kind of authenticity that you just can't fake.
So now, let's put all the pieces together. We can see how the man, his mission, and his media machine all lock into place to create this powerful, self-powering system.
What he's built is basically an advocacy flywheel. You know, a flywheel is heavy and hard to get started, but once it's spinning, it creates its own momentum. That's exactly what's happening here. And here's how that flywheel spins. It starts with his personal trauma. That's the initial push. That trauma fuels his advocacy. His advocacy then becomes the content for his live shows. Those live shows build a dedicated community around him. And then that community amplifies his message, which makes his advocacy even stronger. And the wheel just keeps spinning, faster and faster. So, when you step back and look at the whole picture, it becomes clear. Cybermidnight Club isn't a podcast that's failing. No way. It's something else entirely, and it's succeeding on its own terms. You could call it the anti-podcast. All those things that look like weaknesses, the bad audio, the messy conversations, the terrible ratings, they're actually the whole point. Its value isn't in being polished, it's in being radically, unapologetically authentic. Born from a real story and a real mission.
You know, just for a second, compare it to a masterpiece like Darknet Diaries. That show is beautifully produced, it's scripted, its host is a fantastic storyteller. Cybermidnight Club is the total opposite. Raw, live, unedited, and its host isn't a narrator. He's the main character and an activist. They're not even in the same sport. They're offering completely different things.
So what's the big lesson here? This is way more than just one guy's story. It's a blueprint for a new kind of media. It shows us that a deeply personal story, even a traumatic one, can become your most powerful asset. It proves that a live, community-first approach can be more powerful than a slick production. And it really hammers home that media can be more than just entertainment. It can be a genuine tool for change.
And that kind of leaves us with one final question to chew on. In this world that's just flooded with super slick, super polished content, is this kind of raw, unfiltered, radical authenticity, is that the new superpower?